The husky froze at the crib every midnight, staring into the shadows as if sensing something no one else could ever understand. His rigid posture made the baby giggle, unaware of the eerie tension spreading through the silent room like creeping fog. Each night his growls grew deeper, focused beneath the crib, as though something hidden waited patiently in the darkness. The mother dismissed it at first, thinking it was playful instinct, but the unease in his eyes told another chilling truth. Tonight the room felt colder, the air heavier, as if an unseen presence breathed quietly just beyond the dim nursery light. The baby reached toward the husky, but he didn't move, frozen like a statue guarding her from a threat she couldn't perceive. A soft thump echoed under the crib, faint yet sharp, making the husky's ears snap upward with terrified alertness. The mother stopped in the doorway, watching his tail stiffen as he slowly lowered his head toward the crib's lower slats. Her breath caught when she noticed scratch marks on the wooden floor, fresh ones that hadn't been there the night before. The husky stepped closer, his fur bristling as an icy draft slipped past her ankles like fingers crawling across her skin. The baby's smile faded, her gaze drifting downward as though something unseen whispered her name from beneath the crib. And for the first time, the mother felt it too, an unsettling presence, waiting under the bed, hiding a truth she feared to face. The husky lunged forward, planting himself between the crib and the floor, his growl trembling with a fear she'd never heard before. The mother switched on the brighter lamp, yet somehow the shadows beneath the crib thickened instead of shrinking. A slow creaking rose from the floorboards as though something beneath them shifted its weight inch by inch in the dark. The baby whimpered, her tiny hands reaching toward the husky as if she sensed a threat adults could never fully understand. The husky's stare was unbroken, fixed on the black space under the crib like he saw eyes watching them in silence. A cold wave rolled through the nursery, frosting the mirror's edges, though the heater hummed at full warmth. The mother's heartbeat thundered as she knelt beside him, attempting to lift the crib skirt with trembling fingers. Before she could touch it, the husky pressed his paw against her arm, stopping her with an urgent warning growl. Something lightly tapped from beneath, 3 soft knocks, perfectly spaced, impossible to dismiss as settling wood. The mother staggered back, realizing the knocks matched the rhythm the baby tapped every night before crying. The crib shook ever so slightly, as though something underneath was brushing against its wooden slats deliberately. Her breath hitched as she whispered the question trembling in her mind, "What is hiding under my baby's bed?" The husky suddenly stepped back, ears pinned, as if whatever lurked below had moved closer toward the crib's edge. The tapping stopped instantly, replaced by a scraping sound that dragged slowly along the underside of the wood. The baby's eyes widened, following the invisible motion with eerie precision, her tiny head tilting left to right. The mother grabbed her phone to use as a flashlight, but even its bright beam seemed swallowed by the thick darkness. A faint whisper rose, soft, breathy, unplaceable, like someone murmuring just out of reach beneath the crib. The husky barked sharply, his voice echoing through the room like a warning flare in a silent battlefield. The floor vibrated subtly, as though something heavy pressed upward from below, testing the strength of the wood. The mother pulled the crib slightly, but it barely moved, as if something from underneath resisted her attempt. The whispering turned into a low hum, vibrating the crib rails and making dust drift from the slats above. The baby began to cry, slow at first, then terrified, her tiny hands clawing toward her mother in panic. The husky leaped forward, circling the crib like a guard dog preparing for an attack on an unseen intruder. The mother realized with dawning horror that the dog wasn't trying to scare her. He was trying to protect her. Her shaking fingers finally brushed the crib skirt aside, but the darkness beneath felt deeper than a normal shadow. The light beam flickered as though something interfered with it, leaving only a faint, shimmering glow at the edges. The husky inched forward, lowering his head until his nose nearly touched the floor, sniffing with frantic urgency. A sudden blast of cold air rushed from beneath, carrying a smell like damp soil mixed with metal and something older. The mother lifted the mattress slightly, hoping to reveal the source, but the husky barked sharply, halting her again. The baby's cries grew desperate, each sob shaking her tiny frame as though the presence was reaching for her. A silhouette shifted beneath the floorboards, brief, subtle, but unmistakable, sending a wave of dread up her spine. The mother's knees nearly buckled as the outline pressed upward, forming a faint, hand-shaped impression on the wood. The husky shoved himself against the crib, pushing it away from the spot like he was clearing space for a confrontation. The whispering rose again, this time clearer, sharp enough to make the hair on the mother's arms stand on end. Her mind screamed to run, but her body stayed frozen, trapped between protecting her baby and facing the unknown. Then came the softest, most chilling sound yet, a quiet voice from beneath whispering the baby's name. The mother stumbled backward, but the husky held his ground, growling at the floorboards with fierce, trembling defiance. The voice whispered again, this time longer, drawing out the baby's name with a rhythm almost like a lullaby gone wrong. The air turned heavy, pressing against her chest as if the room itself resisted her attempts to breathe. The crib wheels shifted an inch on their own, scraping lightly against the floor despite the mother not touching it. The husky barked at the exact moment the voice stopped, silencing the room with a tension so sharp it felt alive. The floorboards bulged upward for a heartbeat, just enough to prove something beneath pushed with deliberate intent. The baby shrieked, clinging to the crib railing, staring at the bulge like she saw someone trying to climb out. The mother grabbed her daughter, lifting her into her arms, but the crib continued shaking even after the baby left it. The husky positioned himself between them and the crib, teeth bared, his growl vibrating like thunder in the small room. A faint metallic clinking echoed beneath the bed, like chains brushing against buried stone in slow, heavy drags. The whisper returned, colder than before, this time forming a phrase that made the mother's blood freeze instantly. It murmured, "Don't take her away. She's mine." The mother bolted toward the doorway, clutching her baby tight, but the nursery door slammed shut before she reached it. The impact was so hard the walls trembled, and the husky spun around, barking furiously at the closed door as if warning it back. A deep rumble echoed beneath the crib, heavier this time, like something massive shifting through earth and wood alike. Shadows crawled up the walls, twisting unnaturally, stretching far beyond what the single lamp could possibly cast. The baby hid her face in her mother's shoulder, trembling as cold air swirled around them, like unseen hands brushing by. The husky moved to the center of the room, standing guard between the mother and the crib, his stance rigid and fearless. Another metallic clink rose from below, sharper now, as if someone was dragging a chain link by link toward the surface. The floorboards cracked slightly, splintering outward in thin, jagged lines, like spider webs forming in fast motion. The mother pressed her back against the wall, whispering prayers, begging for the nightmare to stop gripping their home. But the presence beneath the crib responded with a slow, chilling laugh, a sound too human to ignore and too wrong to accept. The husky lunged at the cracking floor, barking with desperate urgency, trying to block whatever was rising from below. The lamp flickered wildly, then died, plunging the room into a darkness so complete she couldn't see her own hands. The room filled with a low, humming vibration, as though something enormous was awakening beneath the floorboards. The husky growled into the dark, but even his fierce voice felt small against the deepening rumble surrounding them. The mother held her baby close, listening to the cracking wood beneath the crib growing louder, closer, more violent. A faint red glow began to seep between the floorboards, pulsing like a heartbeat rising from the depths. Dust drifted upward in swirling patterns, catching the light in eerie spirals that made the air look alive. The baby whimpered a single wordless cry, pointing toward the crib, even though she couldn't possibly see anything. The glow brightened suddenly, revealing a thin outline of a hand pressing upward, its shadow stretching unnaturally long. The husky barked with renewed fury, stepping directly over the glowing spot as though trying to block the entity's ascent. The presence below reacted, slamming against the floor with a force that rippled outward like a shockwave. The crib lifted an inch off the ground, levitating for a split second before crashing back down with a deafening thud. The mother screamed as the red glow flickered violently, flashing symbols across the walls like warnings etched in fire. Something beneath whispered again, this time a guttural, broken voice saying, "She belongs with us now." The husky hurled himself at the floor, scratching and barking like he was fighting an invisible force pulling upward from below. The mother reached for the doorknob again, but it burned her palm with a heat so intense she jerked her hand away instantly. The red glow dimmed, replaced by a pulsating darkness that seemed to swallow the very light from the air around them. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the nursery, though no windows were open, scattering toys across the room violently. The baby screamed and clung tightly to her mother's shirt as the shadows on the walls formed a tall, rising silhouette. The husky snarled, backing up with his fur raised, preparing to attack whatever was emerging from those shifting shadows. The silhouette extended a long arm toward the crib, its fingers sharp and twisted, stretching like smoke refusing to fade. The floor trembled beneath them as the shadowy figure grew clearer, its shape flickering like it struggled to fully manifest. A deep, distorted voice echoed, not from the crib this time, but from every corner of the room all at once. The voice spoke slowly, dragging out each word as if savoring the terror. "You cannot save her. She is already chosen." The mother felt her knees weaken, but she held her baby protectively, refusing to let fear pry her daughter from her arms. The husky leaped forward, biting at the air, forcing the shadow to recoil for the first time as if startled by his defiance. The retreat of the shadow made the floorboards pulse, as though the entity beneath was gathering its strength to rise again. The mother spotted the crib rocking violently on its own, its wooden legs scraping harshly in chaotic jerks across the floor. The husky rushed to block it, planting himself between the baby and the crib still shaking with unnatural force. The temperature plummeted so sharply the mother saw her breath cloud in front of her with every trembling exhale. A faint whisper of multiple voices began swirling together, forming layers of eerie murmurs speaking in broken harmony. The chorus grew louder, chanting something ancient that reverberated through the walls like vibrating metal. The red glow returned, brighter now, illuminating the splintering pattern beneath the crib that spread outward rapidly. The floor erupted with a crack as a dark claw pierced through, curling upward with deliberate, terrifying slowness. The husky lunged and clamped his teeth onto the claw, shaking his head violently as the entity shrieked beneath. The voices erupted into discordant screams as the claw jerked downward, dragging the husky's paws dangerously close. The mother screamed his name, but he held firm, refusing to let the claw advance even an inch further into the room. The baby cried louder, her tiny voice trembling as though she could feel the battle raging beneath their feet. The dark claw thrashed violently, trying to break free from the husky's powerful grip, but the dog held on with fearless resolve. The floorboards buckled as the entity below unleashed a roar that shook dust from the ceiling and rattled every window. The mother bolted forward, grabbing the crib and yanking it away from the breaking floor with all the strength she had left. A violent shockwave burst upward, throwing her backward as the claw snapped free, retreating beneath the shattered boards. The husky staggered, exhausted but still growling fiercely into the gaping crack, glowing faintly with fading red light. The whispering chorus fell silent in an instant, replaced by a deep, void-like stillness that felt impossibly unnatural. The floor slowly sealed itself, the cracks pulling together as though the entity had slipped back into whatever realm it came from. The husky collapsed beside the mother, panting heavily, his body trembling from the relentless battle he'd just endured. The baby reached out and gently touched his fur, her cries quieting as though she understood he had just saved her life. The mother sobbed, clutching both her child and the heroic dog, overwhelmed by the horrifying truth hidden beneath the crib. But as the room grew still, a final whisper rose from the sealed floor. Faint, distant, but undeniably real. It murmured a chilling promise that froze her heart. "I'll return when she sleeps again."